In the 19th century, when people were looking for metaphors for the brain, they often compared the brain to a giant clock. In the 20th century, we were all really impressed with computers, and so we frequently compared our brains, our minds, to a computer. And as technology advances, we often seek the next most magnificent technology to help understand ourselves, and that, at the moment, is the internet. The internet is a better candidate than clocks and computers for understanding the human mind because it's on a similar scale, tens of billions of connections, and more importantly, the internet is made by human minds and therefore has all the personality of a human mind. Now, memory we think of as a storehouse for the past, and that's a kind of compelling thought. But really, memory is much more than that. Memory is the way that we bring the past into the present. And so memory is heavily involved with perception, with emotion, with communication, with everything we do. And we think of the internet mainly as a communications device. So we think of it as basically being a bit like a load of telephones. But the internet is actually very similar to memory in that the spectacular feature of the internet is that it can bring the past into the present. And so there were some amazing examples of this. Wikipedia is probably my favorite. In Wikipedia, something which somebody knew in a distant country 10 years ago can be recorded and made available in the present forever. So some girl in New Zealand might know a tiny bit about a rock band, and then everyone else in the world in the future can use that moment in the past to understand their present. Now, I love the internet, and one of my favorite sites on the internet is called futureme.org. And FutureMe is an awesome site which allows yourself to send yourself messages in the future. So I quite frequently receive messages from myself in the past, and I'm not very impressed with my future self, and so I often send myself messages saying, like, did you do all the things you were supposed to do? Did you, I mean, in this message, I was like, you know, you said this year you're going to learn the cello, learn to speak Croatian, you know, climb Mount Everest. And of course, my former self always knows that my future self will have failed to do this thing, and so it always signs off with reluctant fondness, your former self. So with this particular email, I was kind of felt quite ashamed because I had intended to learn Croatian. I don't really know why, but I'd actually spent more time over the course of the year watching this cat GIF than I had learning Croatian. Now, this cat GIF is excellent. What you see is the cat is trying to leap across a bridge. And this cat GIF is so good that often I'll ring my friends up and go, guys, do you want to come and watch the cat GIF again? And they'll come around, and because we're English, we'll drink a cup of tea and watch the cat GIF. And so the tricky thing about the internet is that we want to be using its miraculous capacities to learn more, to understand about the world, to become better people. But actually, we are addicted to quite a lot of nonsense. So here is a reflection of like a random hour of internet browsing from yesterday. A lot of this comes from Facebook. So what you'll find is in the top corner there is a really bad joke involving two dogs. They're both holding a branch. One of them's a branch manager. One of them's the assistant branch manager. There's a couple of people in a jumpsuit, sort of retro fashion. There's some sort of pretty girls wearing not very much. There's a cat. And there's a picture of me in my student days surrounded by pretty girls. We love stories about ourselves. We love anything which attracts our attention. And so this is a bit of a problem. Now, the internet generally seems to be deleting our memory. It seems to be impoverishing us. I mean, who here would say that with the rise of the internet and technology, their memory has got worse? Can I just get a show of hands? Okay, so that's almost unanimous. And I'd like to say that you're almost unanimously wrong. The internet is actually incredibly good for your memory, and I want to explain how. So a bit of background about myself, which is it's not a very interesting story, but I I got into memory techniques, which were invented in ancient Greece about 10 years ago. And I've spent a lot of the last 10 years teaching and learning about memory techniques. I can remember a shuffled deck of cards in about 45 seconds. At the last conference I was at, I actually learned everybody's phone numbers. Elena actually asked me to do the same here, but I had to say no, because when I actually rang these people up, they wouldn't pick up the phone. So it's very disappointing. Now, it wouldn't be honest of me not to explain that I'm also a master forgetter. I'm an incredibly forgetful person. I forget my keys the whole time. My mother thinks I'm just really stupid because she often says, Ed, can you take the cake out of the oven in 45 minutes? And then 45 minutes later, I'm thinking about something else, and I totally forget. On the way onto stage, they were like, Ed, where's your badge? I was like, I don't know. Very disappointing. Now, to understand how I can learn like a 1,000-digit number, but at the same time forget simple things, you have to understand that the true art of memory is the art of attention. This is something which Dr. Johnson said and remains profoundly true. What is attention? So, to understand attention, you have to understand that normally your mind is full of lots of things. Your mind is never empty. There's always something in your mind. So often it's like the fact that you've got lots of shopping to do, or that your love life isn't very interesting, or that your dog needs feeding, or your cat, or your car needs mending. So the whole range of things which fill our mind at any point. And let's imagine that we then place a gift in front of your mind, in front of your eyes, and you're looking at this present, this gift. What will happen is that the gift will fill some of your mind, but not all of your mind. So the gift will sort of fill a bit of your mind, but everything else will still be there. When we pay attention, we zoom in and we allow that gift to fill more of our minds. And when we do that, the associations with what we're looking at come into the fore and they push everything else out. So we might associate a gift with a party, a love interest who's giving us something, a festival, something pleasant. So these other things fill our mind, and that's when we're paying attention. Now, attention is quite difficult to control from the inside, and more often that it's controlled from the outside. And I want you to make a judgment about two photos I'm about to show you on full screen, and I want you to point towards the photo which grabs your attention most. So which of those two grabs your attention most? Can you all point? Okay, do express yourselves by moving your arms. So can you all point? Right, so it's kind of unanimous. Semi-naked women tend to grab our attention. Which of these two grabs your attention most? This, by the way, on the left-hand side is my life before I became a memory champion, and on the right-hand side, my life afterwards. It's been tough. How about these two? Which of these grabs your attention? Right, so movement grabs our attention just as exotic things grab our attention, just as things which elicit our desire grab our attention. How about these two? Which grabs our attention? Right, so it's always the same thing which grabs our attention, except that it's not always the same thing because our attention is driven by our interests. So which of these two grabs your attention? There's more of a split, I think, in the audience, and this is because some of you are into retro jumpsuits, and some of you prefer looking at handsome men glowering into the camera. And so depending on your preferences, you'll pay attention to one rather than the other. Now, everything that is true of attention is true of memory. We remember things which are absurd, which move, which are colorful, which elicit our desire. And this is one of the core features of memory. And so when I look at my Facebook stream, and when I look at the kind of things I look on the internet, these things which elicit my emotion, which grab my interest, which attract my attention, are the things I actually remember incredibly well. And recent research shows that on Facebook, people have an incredible memory, like ridiculous memory for things which happen there. You remember particular people who liked a post from like 3 years ago, and stuff like that. It's all quite depressing. So this is a wonderful quote by Henri Bergson, which is, "The eye only sees what the mind is prepared to comprehend." And this is because just as memory and attention are kind of flip sides of the same coin, so is perception more generally. We only perceive what we know how to perceive. So take the word gift. And so we saw a picture of gift earlier. How, by the way, is your ancient Greek? Are you any good at ancient Greek? I studied ancient Greek at school, and we were taught the phrase, "For vous tous hermanos, Okay. I haven't finished yet. Okay. Well. Well. uh, just to finish my phrase, Kethora Ferontes. There are many reasons for this piece of wisdom. An English person, when they see the word gift, will think of a gift, will think of a thing. The German word gift, though, means poison. And so if someone's giving you a gift in German, that's not a good thing. Now, what's interesting about this is we have the word gift, the same information, but it goes in two totally different directions. This shows the role of memory in perception. Depending on our associations, the same thing can look completely different to two different people. What is actually happening here when I look at the word gift? You can think of this as there being a load of different memories, and then the gift memory is stimulated by what I perceive, and then it jumps out and produces all those associations. For a German, of course, it's all those memories. One of them is going to be the poison memory is going to jump out. But how does this work where we don't know the thing we are perceiving? So earlier I was asking one of the assistants here if I could borrow her badge, because I didn't have one for phrase. And she used the Greek word ochi. And of course, I don't know what ochi means. And so there were no memories inside my head looking to jump out. But if I apply a bit of imagination, I can connect it to what I know. So I can think, ochi, that sounds like a key, or it sounds like okay, or an oak tree, or hockey. And to me, it sounds like hockey. So I zoom in on the word hockey, and I use my imagination to imagine, do you want to play some hockey? And they say no. So this is the essence of using your imagination to learn. You take what makes no sense, and you transform it into something which does make sense. In this case, hockey, no. Okay. So this is Dominic O'Brien, 7 times world memory champion, and he talks about how the art of memory is the art of imagination. This is a technique which first grew up in ancient Greece, and which allows people now to remember a shuffled deck of cards in 45 seconds, and much faster, in fact. Now, to your minds, when I first heard of people doing this, I thought that's ridiculous. These people must be extraordinary. And this was the image which came into my mind when I imagined trying to do it myself. Some cards kind of fly into my head. Everything gets really, really confusing. Some of the cards start popping out. I've got no idea what's going on at all. All of these memories fall out. I try and cling on to the last memory, and that falls away too. So what we do when we're learning packs of cards is we transform the cards into a form which is more interesting. So we use our imagination to say, okay, each card is going to be a different person or object, and then we try and learn those people or objects instead. And so this is what that looks like. It's much easier, because a chicken or a tennis ball is much easier to remember than the 7 of hearts or the 3 of diamonds. And by using our imagination, we can hold on to more of these objects. But there's still a problem, which is there's not enough space in our mind to hold on to all the cards. And this is where we use this wonderful technique of using space to help remember. So we imagine ourselves in our garden, and then at our front door, and then in the hallway, and then in a sitting room, and then at the top of the stairs, and after the kitchen, the top of the stairs, and then the bedroom, and then we might imagine ourselves in the bathroom, and then we might imagine ourselves in the shower, and then finally we'll go to sleep in a cupboard. Anyway, this is a typical route. We're very, very good at remembering space. And by using this kind of spatial technique, we create new contexts in our mind into which to put the memories. So when we're then learning a pack of cards, we see individual objects like Frank Zappa or a banana, and we imagine them along a route. So we imagine them at our doorstep, or in the hall, or in the kitchen. And by doing so, we spread these memories out in our mind, and we stop them from interfering with each other. So when I'm learning a pack of cards, my experience is actually very much like a Facebook stream. It's actually much better than a Facebook stream, because there are animated GIFs, and there's lots of nakedness and crazy violence. And that helps me remember that. Now, William James, who remains the great thinker about kind of the mind from the late 19th century, says, the great thing in education is to make our nervous system our ally. So what does this mean? How can we turn knowledge into this kind of crazy imagery and make us as good at remembering things we want to remember as we are at remembering the things we don't necessarily want to remember? So this is what we're trying to do in my website, Memrise. We're trying to learn with our imaginations. We take memory very, very seriously. We're trying to be the most memorable place on the internet. So memorable that even our landlord is incredibly memorable. So what we're doing is we're crowdsourcing the world's imagination. So this is a meme, and we're getting memes from people all over the world. People are creating 10,000 memes a day on Memrise. They're very entertaining and funny, and whenever you're learning anything, you're learning from a meme. So this is a favorite example of mine. El polvo in Spanish means a one-night stand, and this meme says, "It was only a polvo because he drove a Volvo." El polvo. And what's great about this is in about 10 seconds, you store a memory which will last far, far longer than any amount of attention or effort or stress will get you. And this is the magic of crowdsourcing the world's imagination. Here's how it works if you're trying to learn a Chinese menu. We're going to try and learn these 3 characters. It's a typical case. You look at a Chinese menu, and nothing happens in your brain. There's just a load of question marks. You feel intimidated. Here's how we would teach you a Chinese menu. Here we've got the character for a cow, and the cow is animating into a picture of a cow. Here we have a character for meat, so you might imagine 2 steaks on a barbecue. Here we have the character for noodles, and so again, someone's creativity has created an amazing picture of some noodles becoming that character. So this, which 20 seconds ago seemed very foreign, very difficult to remember, becomes cow, meat, noodles, or beef noodles. And that's what happens in your mind. And so this is quite cool. I mean, this is like learning with your imagination. And we like to think that your brain on Memrise looks like that, and your brain on not on Memrise kind of looks like that. And so that's what we're trying to do. So we've had 100 million things learned in 220 languages. It's going kind of really well. But something quite concerning began to become apparent, which is that the memes people like most are also the memes which are the cutest. So here we have like a baby, a cat, a squirrel, a cow dressed in a dress, a dog, and a bear. These are the most effective things for memory. And of course, this is a bit disappointing. I was hoping people would be a bit more intellectual, but it turns out these things are the most memorable things on Memrise. And I found a piece of scientific research which seems to explain it. And it reads this: as only scientists can speak. In humans, the stimuli are deemed cute. They capture attention. They bring a smile to the viewer's face and induce motivation and behavior for approach and caregiving. These are practically the very principles of memory: attention, motivation, imagination, and positive emotion. So we decided that we were going to build an app which teaches languages completely through cuteness. And we needed to get the intersection between cuteness, expressiveness, and lots of human situations, so we could teach things like, where is the toast? And like, what is your problem? And so we chose cats, of course, cats being the most expressive animals. So we've just created Cat Academy. And Cat Academy, you learn Spanish by clicking on pictures of cats. Hola. Do you have space for 2? I work out. I don't like. We have a problem. So Cat Academy is this really, really stupid thing, but it might just be the very best way to learn a language through looking at pictures of cats. So I'm going to quickly finish up. We think of our memories as being assaulted by the internet. We think of ourselves as not really remembering anything because of the internet, but this is not correct. The internet is amazing for our memories. It's the most memorable place ever invented. Our brains love connections. They love imagination. They love paying attention to things which amuse us. And so it is with the internet. And to understand the internet, you have to understand human memory. You have to understand that what we remember is stuff which is vivid, which is interesting, which is amusing, and that's the stuff we love to look at. So I hope that in the future people will come to think that the internet and the brain is going to be like the internet sin the brain. Together with it, they're going to advance together and hopefully create new and amazing forms of learning. Thank you.